Morley goes by the handle of Execution Style. That's his shop. He's done about 15 years in the collision repair business and with a body shop, and then started getting into motorcycles, and eventually that became the main focus, and now that's the only focus. He's known for his really dynamic 3D images. They're really something. 3D images with pearls and candies and flake, and a combination of airbrush and painting, and just phenomenal. His bikes have been featured in over a dozen magazines like Hot Bike and Extreme Bike. He's had some corporate clients like DA Performance and Geico Motorcycle Insurance. We'll have to find out what he did for them. He also has a website where he sells parts for Harley Davidson Softtail parts. So it's www.executionstylebigcartel.com. So Kyle, let me welcome you again to and Kyle's also going to be a judge of our motorcycles for the National Auto Body Council virtual car show. And who better to judge those cycles than Kyle. So Kyle, welcome. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Tell us about how you got started in the industry.
Well, way back in high school, I went to vocational school in the last 2 years of high school, and went for, auto body shop. And right out of high school, got a job at the, local body shop. And I actually stayed there. I was there for 10 years and kind of just learned all the ropes, started obviously sweeping the floors, prepping, priming, and then just kind of stepped up. And when it was my time to fly the coop, I went to another body shop, was there for a few years. And then I actually tried my hand in sales. So I worked for a distributor for about 1.5 years. And that's actually when I got into PPG, because I was selling PPG paints. And when I left there, I almost want to say it wasn't for me. Sales just wasn't for me. I need to be using my hands. I need to be creating something. And that's actually when it moved from the body shop and that world over to the custom side. I had always been doing custom things, painting helmets and mailboxes for friends and putting flames on mailboxes, things like that. And then, it just kind of snowballed. And by the time I saw that I had enough clients, customers, that I could be doing the custom thing full time, I went ahead and gave it a shot. And here we are 7 years later, still doing the custom full time. So, and like I had told Dale earlier, in the beginning, I promised myself I would be able to do full custom full time, not collision work. And it kind of, when I started, it was 50-50. And then it kind of, the collision work tapered off, and, I went just full custom paint. And that's where we are now.
And you also teach classes on airbrushing?
Yeah, they're considered airbrush classes. I'm not what I would consider an airbrusher. I'm a custom painter, and there's a fine line there. When I hear airbrusher, it's somebody that does portrait work, and they can do sceneries and things like that. That's not my forte. I have dabbled in it, but that's not where my forte is. So when I do go to teach the classes, I teach custom automotive graphics, which would be kind of the things you see that I do, the three-dimensional graphics, the line work, stuff like that. When you think about a hot rod in flames or the different pattern work, that's more what I do. I do use an airbrush, but it's not fine detailed airbrush work like you would see in a portrait. But those classes are geared towards both airbrushers, fine artists, pinstriping, automotive graphics. So yeah, I've done them for a handful of different ones. One that's no longer doing it, the Art Circus, and most recently I did some for PPG at their training facilities. And the COVID kind of put a squash on that for the last 4 or 5 months. Yeah. So I'm kind of excited to get back into that soon.
Good. Hey, the questions are already coming in. So Jerry wants to know, what's the most extensive build you've done?
Well, when it comes to builds, I do want to say I don't necessarily do builds in my shop. I do strictly paint work, only because I don't want to be in the liability side of things. There's no liability as far as somebody getting hurt when I custom paint something. So most of the things I do is just custom paint work. I have built more than a handful of bikes, but that's only for friends and family and for myself. I've always built my own cars, trucks, bikes growing up. So I'm not really sure how to answer that. Most extensive paint job would probably be one of the wild baggers, just because when the guys do them, they're soup to nuts. It's the full frame, molding all the welds and candy and flake on the frames, graphic. And then, they're the ones that get, I don't want to say they get the most attention, but they grab your attention when you walk past, because it's such a big, massive bike with so much going on.
Tell me a little bit about the process of how the customer comes to you, and are they coming with a bike that needs refinished or a new bike, or what's the process that you go through to come up with the finished product?
It's everywhere. It's everything from, if a guy, is building a chopper, he might be building it from the ground up. He might have bought a frame and a motor and different tanks and fenders, and he would come to me and we would discuss what he needs. Some of the guys actually will buy a used bike, whether it be a Softtail or a touring bike. They'll buy a used bike and take it apart, put the custom parts on it. They'll do the mock-up, make sure everything fits. Then they'll break it down, send me the parts, and we'll basically go over it on the phone, via email, and just kind of I want to get into their head. Some of the guys don't have a clue what they want. They just want something cool, and they have a few colors in mind. And then I have to kind of design something for them. Some of them are very specific. Some of the corporate clients, they have to have it in a rendering form, which I don't do, like high-end renderings. I usually have somebody else do that, and I'll draw it up, I'll sketch it, they'll do a digital rendering of it, and then it'll get approved through the process. And then at that point, then you have to stick to exactly what's on that paper, and that's, like I said, more for the corporate guys. Just because there's sponsorships involved and stuff like that. But a lot of times it's just the customer will tell me, here's what I was thinking. I like these colors. I saw these few bikes you did, or not even a bike. It might be a panel, like the stuff behind me on the wall. It might just be a panel I did for SEMA to hang in somebody's booth, or even just in my shop. And they'll say, have you ever done that on a bike yet? And I say, no. And then we go that route and maybe change some of the colors up. So, and that's actually a good reason to have the different. I mean, just what's behind me is actually just cabinets that I've painted over the years when I have time. But different panels, or some people do skateboards just to hang on the wall as art, and that gives clients an idea of things I might do that I haven't been paid to do yet. That's just something that just came out of my head. So there's a lot of different ways that the process goes from the beginning to a finished product. So kind of everywhere in between.
Okay. Hey, Kevin has a question here. It says, hey, Kyle, do you collaborate with any other refinishing technicians on your projects, i.e. a technician that does do the airbrushing?
Yeah, absolutely. Steve Gibson, his handle is Air, Oil, and Lead. We've done quite a few collaborations over the years. When he first got into the automotive field, he kind of bounced around doing a bunch of different things, and he landed himself in the automotive world doing like very realistic, almost like an oil painting style of airbrushing. And I mean, he's in my top 5, like in the country of airbrushers, and anybody that's seen his work will agree. And he's only about 40 minutes from me. I found him on Instagram just randomly, and it said he was in Atlantic City, which is, like I said, 40 minutes. So I reached out to him. This is going way back, and we collaborated on a few small projects. And then I had a few bagger projects that I wanted to incorporate some portrait work and freehand airbrush. And like I said, I've dabbled in it. I did a few way back, and it's just not my cup of tea. So I like to use the people around me, and we became really good friends since. But use somebody around me that is that's exactly what he does, and he uses me for the same thing. Even if we don't collaborate, I'll have somebody that comes to me and says, hey, I want a portrait on the fender of my motorcycle. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to give it to Steve as a job. And then he'll have somebody that says, I need some flake and panel work. He'll send it to me. So it's a real good back and forth. He's one that's, I have collaborated with a few other people. He's a standout because we've done so many together. And we actually started teaching all them classes together. We would travel because we were flying out of the same airport. We would travel to all the classes to teach together for the first few years.
Okay. Got a couple questions about, your bike. So what's the first bike that you ever owned and at what age? And then what do you ride now?
I grew up racing BMX, racing motocross, doing freestyle motocross, things like that. But at that time, I didn't even ride street motorcycles. I was doing lowered and lifted trucks, cars. My first car was a 1965 Chrysler New Yorker that I had hydraulics on, and I redid that whole car from when I was 16 to about 18. Then I switched over to basically like lowrider trucks. I didn't have my first street motorcycle. Well, I had a few sport bikes. I guess it's a motorcycle. Obviously, it's a motorcycle. But my first Harley wasn't until, I don't even know, I was probably 25 or maybe 30. But the first chopper I ever built, I couldn't afford to build a Harley, so I went out and bought an old Honda. It was a '79 CB750, and my wife actually laughed at me when I pulled in the driveway with it because it was such a god-awful ugly bike, and it was bone stock, and it's an old inline 4-cylinder bike, so it just didn't look like something you could make something cool out of. And I stripped it down to the frame, pulled the motor out, chopped it up, went down to the local Harley junkyard down here and bought a bunch of different tanks and fenders and things, cut, welded, and I made my first chopper. And that was actually the first feature in a magazine I ever had, was that bike. And previous to that, I had no dealings with any magazines, probably didn't think I could even get in one. And it was in Cycle Source magazine back in, I think it was 05 or 06 or something like that. And that was kind of what got me into, I actually painted that. That was the first real metal flake panel paint job I did. And I just did whatever I thought was right at the time. And it worked out pretty well. Obviously, I learned a lot from that one. But yeah, that was the first bike. It was actually a Honda CB750 chopper, which is kind of weird, but I think it's kind of cool that I did it that way instead of just jumping right into the Harleys, because I learned a lot on that one.
Do you still have that?
No, I don't keep anything. I only keep whatever I have: trucks, cars, bikes. If I build it, once it's finished, it might take me a year to 2 or 3, whatever, to build it. Once I have it finished, I guess I'm almost done with it, which sounds weird because some people keep stuff forever. I usually don't have it for another 6 or 8 months, maybe a year, and then I sell it and I start the next project.
So what do you ride today?
Today is a 03 Softtail, and I had a Softtail before this that was done completely different. And that's going back to, you said I had the parts website for Softtails. That's why I have that site. We started manufacturing some of our own parts, and we also sell other people's other brand parts that I use on that site. And it's kind of just a one-stop shop for people that want to customize their Softtail. The Softtail is Harley's bike that's been around since 1986, I believe, and they didn't change from 86 to 2017. So you can buy parts and customize these bikes that have been the same for that many years. So I actually built one, say, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, but it was completely different. It was more of a chopper style. This one is more of a, I don't want to really say what exactly the style, because everybody calls it something different. It's like a cholo style. It's I think I want to say that style almost started out west, in California and stuff like that. But I put my spin on that, and all the parts on my website are basically, you could build my bike by buying a stock bike, going to my site, buying all the parts, fenders, wheels, air ride, center stand, bars, all that stuff, and build one up literally in a week. But that's why I built this one, because it's almost like the one I ride now is like a calling card to what I kind of the style paint jobs I do and the parts I sell.
So these parts are manufactured at the same location where your paint work is. How many?
They're not manufactured in-house here. I designed the original parts, mocked them up, fit them on the bikes I have here, and then they're outsourced. They are made in America. They're actually made out in Indiana.
Yeah, okay. How many people work with you at your location?
It is me, and I have a good friend that's also in the collision industry that works at a body shop, and he helps me when I need it, which is quite often. It's really nice to have him him as a helper, helping me out because he's been in the industry for years. He knows exactly what to do. Instead of me having a helper that I have to almost like teach what to do, I can trust him to make the same decisions I would make. Him being a full-time painter, he knows exactly what it needs to be, and he's meticulous like me, so it really helps. But I don't have anybody here full-time. It's just me from beginning to end. As far as prep, body, paint, polish, and shipping it, and shipping as well, because I'd say about 90 or 95% of the bikes you've seen that I've done have been shipped in and out. The parts, either palletized or FedEx, UPS. Because, like I said, in Southern Jersey, we don't have a huge motorcycle scene here, so there's not a lot of custom guys building custom bikes here.
There's a couple questions that Kyle kind of answered early on in the conversation, but he sprays PPG paint, and he does strictly bikes. He started out doing with a body shop, and then it started to evolve to half bikes and half cars, and now he does strictly bikes. Clint has a question though, and what in your opinion is the most important innovation in your work over the last 5 years?
Oh boy, that's a tough question. The most important, I feel like every decision I make is super important to me, obviously. But as far as the innovation, it's hard to say. I would say possibly just the 3D imagery that I use, and if anybody follows my work, they know exactly what I'm talking about. So when I do any job, but the majority at this point is the metal flake jobs. And when I keep saying a panel paint job, that's basically like an old school lowrider paint job. I've obviously used what's been around forever. They were popular back in the 70s. But I try to take that, what's been around for ages and is basically tried and true. It'll be around forever, and make it my style, which when I say my style, I try to throw that three-dimensional look into it. So it would be, with three-dimensional cubes, triangles, whatever it may be. It just looks like you can kind of reach your hand in there and grab something. So that's what I try to do on every bike, is make something that you're not going to see on the bike next to it at a show. Really, that's what a lot of guys are building these bikes for. Not everyone, but if you're really putting a full custom paint job on a bike, normally you're doing it to show it. You're not doing it just to ride down to the local bar, So that's probably the biggest innovation, and it was way back, and I just keep kind of riding on that and changing it and adapting new styles to it.
Bill asked, what's the average project cost?
Oh man, that's a super duper hard question, because the bikes change size so much. So you could, I could do a old school chopper that has a small gas tank and a small rear fender, and that's the whole paint job. It's just two small pieces. And now the last bike that I'm shipping out today that I did, it's a full touring bike, and this is actually a stereo bike, which means he's going to be in stereo competitions with it. So he has, I'm going to say the full frame, molded everything on the frame. It's got a gas tank, front fender, rear fender, two saddlebags, two lids, two side covers, an inner fairing, outer fairing, windshield, chin spoiler, and two pieces that go in front of your legs with speakers in them. So that bike has 18, 19 parts. So it's really, really tough to even say price-wise, because you have a bike with 2, and then you have a bike with 20 parts. So, I could have painted how many choppers for the price for this bike here. So it's really tough to say price-wise, they differ so much.
What are you going to be looking for when you judge the bikes for the National Auto Body Council Virtual Car Show?
Depending on the quality of the pictures I receive, I'm going to be looking for attention to detail. That's a huge thing that I've always looked for. And that is what I pride myself on in my work is, from 20 feet away, an average paint job can look really nice. when you get up on a bike and you kneel down next to it and you're really looking at the details, the different coatings on the engine parts and the accessory parts, that's completely separate from even the paint work. You could have a bike that's full built that you have just as many hours into and time and energy and money with a single color paint job, and then you have something like I do with a full crazy graphics, and that single color one might actually be a better bike if they paid attention to detail as far as the different coatings. When I say that, I mean like the anodizing, the chroming. A lot of guys are using Cerakote now for coatings on the motor and the pipes, things like that. So basically, how many modifications are on the bikes and what kind of attention to detail are they? Are they off-the-shelf parts or are they hand-built? And, when you're at a show in person, you can see a lot of that and really be able to tell. So like I said, it's going to have a little bit to do with what kind of pictures I receive, but that's what I'm looking for is the attention to detail and how much time and energy it looks like you put into the project.
Yeah. Okay, good. We're looking forward to that. What Kyle does is visual. It's spectacular to see, and so it lends itself to a visual medium like Instagram, and he has about 27,000 followers on his Instagram, and up there you can see some of the great work he does, and it's really spectacular. So if you get a chance, take a look. Bill asked, any chance that part of the NABC virtual car show is also an auction? There's a lot of cool auction items, and he's wondering if there's a chance that we could get a panel like the ones behind you, maybe autographed for one of the auction items.
Yeah, absolutely. When is that going to be? Because I would rather almost do something new and fresh. How long do we have for that?
When's the deadline? The 13th.
Okay. Yeah, I could whip something up for sure.
Okay, that would be awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, not a problem at all. And I mean, you explain
the details.
I don't know if everyone on here is familiar exactly what it is, but you were explaining what the National Auto Body Council is. I think it's really cool, especially what did you call recycled rides?
Yes.
I think that's so neat. It's cool to give. It's cool to be able to give back to somebody, like you said, somebody in the community that needs a ride, or veterans. I just think that's really it's definitely a good cause, and it's cool that they're doing that.
Great. I don't see anything from George. George, did you have a question?
Well, I just had the question about vintage stuff. Do you ever play with any vintage stuff, or is that just straight away something you don't get involved with?
Yeah. There's actually a gentleman, I'd say he's about 25, 30 minutes from here, that does old Triumphs. And he's done a few Indians, a few old Harleys, but he's mainly a Triumph guy because his father actually owned one of the big Triumph dealerships local to here back in the 60s, I believe it was. So I've done all his paint work for the last 5 or 6 years. So I definitely do it. And he sends me quite a few different customers. He's got customers all over the country because he's like known as the Triumph guy. So I've done a lot of Triumph stuff. And the guy who actually helped me with my new paint booth, he actually is a vintage guy. So I'm getting ready to do an Indian for him. So yeah, I enjoy doing some of the older stuff. Matter of fact, the Indian that the Triumph guy did, the Indian, he built a full, I forget what year it was, but that ended up going to Wayne Carini. I forget what show he has on. I think it's on Discovery or History Channel. He's like it's called like Chasing Cars, I believe. I think I might be mistaken, but yeah, he actually bought that Indian from him. So he got to meet him, and he was excited about that. But yeah, we do. My wife actually says I have trouble saying no. I don't turn away too much work. If somebody brings something, and they're into it, and they want to whatever it is restore. If it's it's a brand new motorcycle to a 1914, I'll get my hands dirty on it.
Kyle, George has been around a few bikes in his day. George, tell us. about that.
Oh yeah, well, it's mostly, off-road and trials, and you didn't have to look pretty, you just had to be functional. And I found that as you got into custom work, you don't fall down very much, you don't get hurt. So I kind of like, hey, well, I got that real quick. Anodizing, do you do all your anodizing on site, or do you send that out, or how do
we do not do anodizing. CT Anodizing in Connecticut is who we use. We used to get a lot of wheels done by a shop, well, a wheel builder up in Connecticut, and that was his anodizer. So we kind of got hooked on CT, and they've been really good. I mean, I would say probably the best, especially out here on the East Coast. And there's not quite as many of them on the East Coast as there is out west. But yeah, they've always done nice work.
Thank you.
For anybody new that's joined us, if you have a question for Kyle, go ahead and put it on chat, and I'll read it, and Kyle will answer for you. Kyle's handle on Instagram and Facebook is Execution Style, spelled Xecution style. So if you want to check out a lot of his rides, that's where you go.
Yep, and that's Execution Style on Instagram, Execution Style on Facebook, and I also have my personal page, Kyle Morley, on Facebook. I don't post as much on Facebook. I'm not sure why. I just always jump on Instagram, and I make up videos and of the process, and finished products, stuff like that. And then also the website is executionstyle.com, and the parts website is executionstyle@bigcartel.com.
So you talked before that the projects that you have could range from painting a couple pieces to painting a lot.
Yeah.
So what's the average project time, and how many projects do you do in a year?
Per year that's a probably impossible question, because it's different every year depending on the size. But a chopper, 3-piece chopper, which would be like two fenders in a tank, be like a 2-week turnaround. One of the large touring bikes that have, like I said, like 20 parts with the frame and the whole nine, that's a solid month, maybe month and a half, depending. A lot of the process, especially on the style I do with the metal flakes, you have to do all your bodywork, primer, let that sit, prep it, flake it, clear it, let that set up, just let everything really like soak in and cure up before you start. You can't just you could just keep running through the process and go to the next step, but letting each one cure up really good, and not just baking it in the booth, just let it really cure up good, makes the finished product that much better. Nothing, because you can make it look perfect when it leaves the shop, but a month later, just as it's curing, if you rush the process, you can see it kind of like sinking in, and you'll see where the clear just doesn't look as brilliant and smooth as it did when it left the shop. So, it usually takes a few weeks, but I always say 2 to 4 weeks for a 2-week job, just because I want to make sure I let it set up and just to get the best job out of it. You can't rush that kind of thing, and you can't fix it afterwards. So it's better to do it the right way the first time, take a little extra time. And most of the customers they're okay with it, because they understand that it's going to be the best I could possibly do. And they just have to trust the process,
We'll do the last 2 questions because we're just about at our time. Kevin asked, so at each step in the refinish process, are you clearing and then moving to the next design step?
Absolutely. Yeah, I clear, and I learned that, I'd say 15 or 16 years ago. I learned the hard way a few times, and I know guys out there doing it, and they get away with it. They're able to do it. Kudos to them. I put the color down, clear it, let it sit, prep it back up, put the graphics on, clear it again, sand it, final clear, whatever it may be. I don't put clear in between every single color. The way I lay my tape work out, it lends it to be where I can peel, put color on, peel, put color on. But I try not putting tape on fresh base coat. I like to put it on a cleared and sanded surface. It comes out better. And really, for all that means, it also puts more gloss on the bike because you have clear in between each one. So the final product is actually has a little bit more physical depth, not just the depth you're giving it with the graphics. So yes, the answer is yes, clear in between every step. I do personally.
Last question from Kevin. So you've started in a body shop. Now you're doing this. Where did you learn? And you're very active on social media. So kind of where did you learn, and how do you develop your strategies for marketing your business and your products?
Ooh, by the seat of my pants. I have just always, and I do get that question a lot. I have always, I want to be doing better than I am today, tomorrow. I'm never happy with where I'm at. Even if I'm doing okay, I'm not, I want to do the next step. So I've just always reached out to, either people somebody that knows someone, or I'll just basically, and I would say I might have even learned it from working sales for that year and a half, just doing cold calls. I'll email someone, I'll see someone on Instagram that is affiliated with a company that I want to work with, and I never put myself out there to try to beg for something. I don't ask for a sponsorship. I ask what I can do for them to try to create a relationship and have a good back and forth. And I think that's a huge thing. And I've had a few people ask me for information, for contact info for certain companies that I work with. And I've even had the companies call me and tell me, hey, this guy said he knew you, and he just called asking for free products. I don't like to do that. I like to try to, like I said, create a relationship and get a good back and forth and give them just as much as they're giving me, so they see value in me. And I think that gives you a lot more longevity than just kind of reaching your hand out,
Yeah.
So that's my strategy.
All right, Kyle, thanks so much for, first of all, taking the time to chat with us today, and then for being a judge in the NABC virtual car show presented by LKQ. They're really, enter your bikes. Everybody else that's online and has a bike and hasn't entered, make sure you enter your bikes. And Kyle, again, we appreciate your support.
Yep, absolutely.
Thanks,
Thanks for having me, and I appreciate it. And I'm actually eager to judge these bikes. So yeah, make sure you enter them in there.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
See you.
Bye-bye.